Okay, so let me quickly explain how we're going to start off creating our shield. We'll first need to imagine what the side profile of the shield is like. Imagine cutting one of these Viking round shields in half. That side profile is the cross section we'll need to sketch. After that, we'll use the revolve tool to rotate each part of the sketch about an axis to make it three-dimensional. I'll get started creating my artifact then. First, I'm going to be doing some sketching, so I'll click on the top of the view cube to angle my view. According to my research, an appropriate size for this shield would be 95 centimeters in diameter and only 12 millimeters thick. I'll create a rectangle using the rectangle tool under the sketch tab with the dimensions 12 millimeters by 47.5 millimeters, half the diameter. To do this, I just type in 12 millimeters and then push tab and type in 47.5 centimeters. Pushing enter on your keyboard will lock the dimensions once we've typed them in, and then you just click on your screen and it'll create the rectangle. Similarly, I will create the round metal part in the center of our shield, known as the shield boss. Once more, I look to my research notes to find that these metal hemispheres were about 15 centimeters in diameter and were hollow, so the person wielding it could have their hand inside the protective hemisphere. To make this hemisphere, I will use the circle tool from the sketch tab to create a circle at the base of our rectangle that is 15 centimeters in diameter. The shield boss was only 4 millimeters thick. To make this hollow, I'll use the offset tool under the sketch tab to make a circle offset from our current circle. I'll offset it by 4 millimeters. So you click on the sketch you want to edit, click on the circle, and then type in 4 millimeters, and then push enter. If we revolved the area between our two circles right now, we would make a whole sphere. In order to get a hemisphere, we will have to chop off some geometry. To start though, I will create the line that we will revolve our shield about. We will use the polyline tool from the sketch tab. We'll start off just by creating the line from the bottom of our rectangle to the outside of our circles. I hope by now you can see how, by revolving these shapes about this line, we'll get our Viking round shield. Alright, well, let's get the trim tool selected. It's from the sketch tab. To use the trim tool, much like most sketch tools, you have to select the sketch we are editing by highlighting it and clicking on it. Now, we just click on the outside portions of the circle that we don't want. Let's also get rid of these parts of our shield in here, and this extra small line up here. You'll see why that's important in a moment. The last major component's cross section, which we still need to sketch, is the leather strap that was wrapped around the circumference of the shield, which helped hold the shield together in combat. I could not find an approximate dimension of this leather strap in my research. However, I read that the nails they used to hold the leather onto the shield were 20 millimeters from the edge of the shield. Since I don't have an accurate account of how wide the strap was, I will estimate that the strap covered the outer 25 millimeters of the shield. The cross section of our leather strap will be a simple rectangle. So we will make the rectangle. The rectangle's height will be 25 millimeters. One cool trick that I haven't mentioned yet in 123D Design, when you don't have a tool selected, you can select different edges of your sketch and modify them just by clicking and dragging. In this case, I'm going to make our strap a little bit taller than the shield, and I'll make it a little less wide. Now it's time to make our 2D sketch into a 3D solid using the revolve tool. Let's reposition our view so we can see what we are doing first. The revolve tool is located underneath the construct tab. When selected, two different selectors appear, the profile and the axis. The revolve tool works by rotating the profile you select about the axis. So with the profile selector, we will click on our boss. Now we need to select our axis. We click on the axis selector and click on our line. Now when we click and drag this little circle around, we can create a three-dimensional solid. We can also just type in 360 degrees and push enter to create the solid. Now this is important. Make sure to push escape to deselect your profile. Alright, let's use the revolve tool again to create the wooden part of our shield. We select our profile, and then we select our axis. Now, one important thing to note here is that this would be joining the wood to the boss. We want to create a new solid to keep them as two separate components. To do this, you'll want to make sure to select Create New Solid just to the right of the axis selector. Once more, we type in 360 degrees to create the wooden portion of our shield. Notice now these two portions are two separate components. This will make our lives a lot easier when it comes to coloring our shield. Let's do this again for our leather strap. And once more, remember to select New Solid. Okay, now this is starting to look like a real Viking round shield. All we have to do now is add a handle, some details, and some material textures to make it look more authentic. Let's quickly add some colors and textures to our shield. To do this, we select the component we want to change just by clicking on it, and then going to the material library that's at the bottom or the top right. Historically, they used iron for the boss, so I'll just go ahead and select iron from the material library. With the material library open, we can go ahead and select another component. I'll select the wooden part of our shield. My research says that these shields were often made out of many different types of wood, so I'll just take a minute to look through the materials for wood that looks good. Next, we'll need to color our leather strap. Because there isn't a leather material in the material library, I'll go ahead and select a material without too much texture and edit its color by applying an overlay. We'll make brown just by going to orange and choosing a darker shade. Make sure that the Apply Overlay button is checked, so it will give us a color change. Alright, our shield's looking pretty good so far. Now that's left is the details and a handle.